Good evening, everyone. I am Warren Gaskill, and we will get conversant with the technology here momentarily. We're also all learning kind of new tricks right now. And I'm going to show you my screen. So anyway, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. This is the second of our three-part series, Climate Action Workshop series. And just by way of background, this series was, I guess, first started or conceived of about a year ago this summer, following the sort of incredible rain that we had the previous fall in Wisconsin in Black Earth Creek watershed that flooded all the communities throughout the watershed, Cross Plains, Mazomanie, Middleton, Black Earth, and those communities. And then last year's record rainfalls that were happening. And so some of us in the town of Vermont, David Stanfield, Peter Antoni, Barbara Borns, thought, well, what can we do about this? People were very much aware of climate changes and the issues about that. And we thought, well, what do we do about that? What can we do about it? And so we've been working on a couple of fronts with that. We went to our town board with this idea that we wanted to approach our utilities, the ones that serve the town of Vermont, and encourage them to add more renewable energy into their systems, primarily a Black Earth utility and Mount Horeb Co-op. We're also served here in the township by Alliant and Madison Gas and Electric, so it's kind of a complex little meeting spot for them. And then also we conceived of this workshop series that we have, and it's really kind of a basic thought or series that we wanted to get going the title that we had on the brochures is "What Can We Do Now?" And what can we do? And we realized that there's a lot happening, and we wanted to really focus on that. There's a lot that can be done. We don't have to be helpless in terms of what we see in terms of climate change. And what's going on, and we can do a lot of things. So in February, at the end of February, we focused on what is being done in Dane County, particularly, and nationally. We showed the film From Paris to Pittsburgh that talked about communities across the country that are addressing their issues of climate change. And we also importantly introduced Keith Riopel from the Dane County Climate and Energy Office, who has been working hard for the past 2 years on his climate action plan. That is being released. It's been interrupted, as everything else has, by this COVID-19 virus that's disrupted our world. But it's very well thought out, and there are a lot of steps that Dane County is actually in process of implementing now in terms of addressing climate change. So that was the first session that we have. And then we tonight, a month later, we gave some tests or some assignments between a month ago and tonight for people focusing on energy efficiency. And we wanted to target that. It's not the sexiest thing in the world, LED light bulbs and things like. There's a lot happening there, but it's not as quote unquote as sexy as, for example, solar power and solar energy and a Tesla automobile and all that. But it's really the base of where you have to work. If you don't have an energy efficient office or farm or home, it makes no sense to add any sort of renewable energy at all. So it's really a good starting point for making certain you got the basics done. And that's really the focus of tonight's discussion that we're going to have here tonight. Obviously, we're meeting in internet forum. We're all learning different things. I was talking to one of our panelists today, and she said she has 2 young ones at home, and she says she's learning how to homeschool now. They're 16 days into this and their family, and so we're all learning a lot of new tricks right now. And I had to brush up my skills with this GoToWebinar and to figure out how all that works. So I'm hoping it works well, and I'm hoping you all can hear me and etc. And we can share all of this. You should be able to see my face in the slide that I have on the screen right now. I wanted to also add, in this time of ours, this COVID-19. So while we've been gradually, slowly in the US and around the world thinking about CO2 and its accumulation in our atmosphere and what we can do about it, and seeing the effect in the form of fires and floods and record rainfalls and droughts and everything else. This COVID-19 issue comes jumping into our headlights almost instantaneously, it seems, and it's part and parcel of the same interaction of humans with the world. It's a virus that emerged, that jumped, that leapt from the animal kingdom into the human kingdom, and then it spread like wildfire through all our interconnected worlds. And here it is. So what we're going through now is really another chapter, another part of this whole human environmental issue that we have going on now. So what we do tonight on thinking about energy efficiency, it all interconnects with trying to be better citizens in our world. So we hope that by attending this, by sharing what you're learning in this webinar tonight, and by not only in your own businesses and homes, but sharing this with others, we can help start to move forward with that. We got an issue of the National Geographic this month's edition in our home. And I noticed when I held this up to my webcam that headlines are backwards. This is kind of odd. I don't know if you can see it straight ahead or backwards, but the title on one of the pages of the National Geographic is "How We Lost the Planet." All very, pessimistic. And this is published on the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, which of course started in Wisconsin with Gaylord Nelson. And it's looking 50 years ahead to 2070. And it projects that, how we lost the planet, a pessimist guide. But then handily, it says, not ready to give up on the little corner down here. You flip it over, and the other half of the whole entire issue is how we save the world, an optimist guide to life on Earth in 2070. And it's really reflects to me kind of what a turning point we're at as an economy, as a being in our world, for our families going ahead. And so there's a lot we can do now to take action. So that's kind of the preamble of kind of what we're doing. I have a couple slides on the screen here to go through, and then we have some panelists. Mike Wolmer from the Ice Age Trail Alliance in Cross Plains is going to talk about some of the work that they've done in their facility there in terms of energy efficiency and with the help of Cross Plains. Destiny Udelhofen from the Driftless History Center in Mount Horeb will talk about what they had to work through in their complex reconstruction of their facility, their lovely facility in downtown Mount Horeb. I'm going to give a little slide on Seaman Lumber, which is also taking advantage of that. And then we're going to turn the presentation over to Chris Seitz from Focus on Energy, who will really give the bulk of it. We are recording this tonight, so the recording will be available after this to use and share. And hopefully we will be able to open it up to questions afterwards. I think I can open it up so we can unmute you and you can actually raise the question. We can open up a discussion. We'll see how that goes. But first, I want to do a little poll here because at the last February session we were there, we asked you a question that what do you think to work on over the next year? How energy efficient is your target building? Whether it's your home or a business. There should be a poll here that you should be able to look at and just think about it. You don't have to be a real engineer to think about it, but you think in your house, is there a lot of opportunity for energy efficiency improvement from what you know about it? Is it leaky, or do you think it's pretty darn close? You've changed all the light bulbs, etc. And so if you could take a look at that, I see some of you are answering it. 50. Look at that. You're in the middle. Take a few moments to answer it. And I wonder if we can show the poll on screen. We'll see. I'll read it to you if I can't. No, I can't. Never mind. Okay, what I'm seeing here is that most of you have done a lot on the 0 to 4 scale. 0 being that there's a lot of opportunity. 2, you 20% of you, 19% of you say that, well, you got some opportunity for improvement. 2/3 of you say that, well, you've done a lot, but there's probably more that you can do, and that, and then 14 of some of you are pretty doggone good. I know we've done a lot in our home. I know we have actually more that we can do in terms of equipment, things like that. So that's interesting to know. And I'm going to launch one other here, one other of these. So as you thought about that, answer these questions. Where do you think there are the biggest opportunities to save dollars and reduce CO2 in your operations? And here's a check sheet there. Is it a drafty building? Do you have old windows? Is there older equipment? I guess I didn't put lighting in there. Probably should have put lighting in there. You can check others too, but furnace, heating and air conditioning. I know in furnace, heating and air conditioning, they've upgraded a lot of equipment nowadays. So the stuff that we might have bought 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 5 years ago has been rapidly improved. So I see most of you have answered. I'll close the poll now. It looks like a good percent of you have answered. No, more of you are answering now. That's good. We're almost all of you. This is kind of fun to see. I'm sorry it doesn't show it real time. Maybe there are ways to do that, but I can't do it. So I'll just read it to you. The draft and building, about 20% of you say that's an issue that you have. There might be need for more insulation. Old windows, about a quarter of you say that, same as draft in the building. About a third of you say older equipment might be an opportunity for improvement. Transportation, auto, etc., and 36% is other. So that's interesting, and that should give some information to Chris to sort of target his comments as he goes through here. So with that, let me just see here. Let me share screen and closed and sharing and okay. I'll go back to showing my screen and we will show this. And show. That's funny. I guess I can share the results. Oh, there, look at that. You can share the results. Maybe you can see that. That is so cool. That's the results of the last one. Hide the results. Paused. Okay. And sharing, forgive me, show. Okay. There we go. I think we're there. Excuse the fumbling here. So as I mentioned, we have had, this is the second of 3 episodes. Tonight we're focusing on this key first step, energy efficiency. One of the things we talked about last month was a path forward in terms of our climate change issues, certainly, and trying to be better citizens in our world is try to get as energy efficient as possible in your operations, wherever it is. Use as much renewable energy as possible. I guess that's bad news for the fossil fuel energy, but that seems to be the way it's going. But it's these fossil fuels that we keep pumping into the atmosphere that has caused the incredible issues that we've had in terms of climate-wise. And then, run everything you can on electricity. All the automakers are coming out with the electric cars this year. There are a whole bunch of new models coming out. Heat pumps, there are a lot of different things that you can run on electricity. So you try to get as much renewable energy as you can, everything on electricity. The utilities are adding much more utility information and resources that they have. So we need to keep moving in that direction. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Mike Woolmer at the Ice Age Trail Alliance headquarters. They have this beautiful building there in downtown Cross Plains. And Mike, I think your microphone's on, and speak up, and I'll give you the presentation and talk through what's been happening at what happened at the Alliance Center in your headquarters there.
Okay, thank you. The picture you see there is a little bit dated. We have an addition now that increased the size of our building by about double. That shoots out the back side of the building to the left of the photo you're looking at. I guess our story here would kind of begin when we came to Cross Plains. We did not build this building. It was built for us as tenants by a local investment group. We had an extraordinary amount of input as a tenant into the design and some of the efficiencies that we could fit into, really into their budget. At the time, we were able to source premium windows that were not only sound but energy efficient. We were able to pay more attention to insulation, low volume toilets, on-demand hot water. And I credit a local builder, Rustlers and Sons, with and of course the investor group to allow us to fit those things into our budget. So that was 2018. We remained here rather static until 16. We had there was another tenant downstairs. By this time, we had bought the building. And when we remodeled and opened up the lower level to the main space, we were able to deal with what was then efficient lighting. I guess that was really the key, how much had changed since 2008, but as well, how much had changed again as we moved ahead. In 2017 is kind of when the Focus on Energy program came to light. Some representatives from Focus on Energy came through and asked to do a study of the building and provide a recommendation to us on what could be improved and what have you. Their original plans were to replace all of the lighting in the building. Due to some architectural issues, we were only able to replace about 85% of the lighting on the indoor and the outdoor. We were happy to see that a local contractor, Nelson Electric, was a partner with the Focus on Energy program, and we knew them from having been the subcontractor on the original building. They provided a quote to us at that time of almost $8,000. Focus on Energy had provided a $2,000 incentive. That was effectively a cash incentive, leaving us with a $5,900 exposure. And when you looked at the payback, which was at the time estimated for the balance of 2018 of about $1,100, which would annualize closer to $1,300, it allowed us to reach a 5-year payback, which is extremely good. And I'd go a step further by saying that, as I alluded to earlier, in 2019, we added a rather substantial addition onto the building. The original building is a concrete. There's an acronym for it, but it's poured concrete with steel in foam forms. So it's probably the most substantial building in Cross Plains in that sense. There were some architectural reasons and some cost issues that didn't allow us to use that type of construction on our addition, but we were able to pay a lot of attention from what we learned with Focus on Energy, and this addition was stick-built rather than this concrete, but we were able to employ some things we learned about better insulation. Obviously, lighting was easier to do. We could mirror what had been done previously with Focus on Energy, high efficient heating plant that involved both forced air and in-floor heating. And although we weren't able to rationalize the cost of it at the time, we did build the building and made an accommodation to add solar to the roof, should it become a better investment. And we have not researched that in the last 6 to 8 months, but we hope that can be something we can do it. The building has a perfect exposure for that. And that would kind of wrap up what we've done.
Good. Well, thank you, Mike. I would say tune in to next month's webinar on solar energy, because we've been talking to our friends at Legacy Solar, and they have it figured out so that basically for what you're paying now for electricity, solar can be installed with the rebates and everything else that you get. So there's, again, it's become much more affordable, especially if you haven't investigated early. Thanks much. I'm sorry I got the old picture of the building. I didn't.
Yes.
I thought it looked like the one I've been driving by all this time here, but you got that whole addition back there. It's very nice.
Up in the front it does. You know, you'd have to go around down by beautiful Black Earth Creek to see the new part.
Yeah, and you have lovely gardens there too, around the building. Thanks for your good work. Let me turn it over now to Destiny Udelhoven.
Thank you very much. We appreciate being here.
At the Driftless Historium in Mount Horeb. We'll see if we can get to the next slide. There we go. And Destiny, talk a little bit about this. I mean, you did this massive remaking of these buildings in downtown Mount Horeb that are just beautiful in terms of the way they fit in, and you have a lovely community center for all of us. We've been there a few times. I just really love it and what the exhibits that you have there. But I'll turn it over to you, Destiny, and talk about your experience and that you went through and your work with Focus and what you've learned from it.
Sure. So we started our project. The construction began in 2016. We opened to the public in June of 2017. Our 3-building facility is about 15,000 square feet. It was about a $1.8 million project, completely community funded. We got no federal funding. So we are very lucky to have such a supportive community around us. We are serviced by Mount Horeb Utilities, which is a WPPI Energy member, which I think was mentioned. The utility helped us work through the process of the Focus on Energy project. I was telling Warren that what I can give you guys for information is to basically reassure people that you do not have to be technologically savvy to take advantage of this. In fact, we sort of have a board member, John Swartz, who's still with us, who had done this before in his previous life as before he retired. And he was pushing us to look into the Focus on Energy potential, and we did, and we actually didn't bring them in until we had our plans pretty well underway. That is not something that Focus on Energy recommends, but I think it shows their dedication and their flexibility, and that they did come on board at least halfway through, maybe 3/4 of the way through into our blueprints and helped us make some adjustments, which we're very fortunate to have them be so flexible, like I said. We relied super heavily, we meaning the board, and there's 2 staff here. We relied on our architect and our contractor to navigate the technical aspects of this. They worked with our Focus on Energy liaisons to do all these spreadsheets of the numbers and the future estimates, which I can't even talk intelligently about to you. If you have more questions about that, you could reach out to me and I could forward you on to our contractor, but I'll just let you know that they made it really a breeze to work with Focus on Energy. They worked with us really well. What else was I going to say? So in our project, we, of course, as many people do, had 2 priorities. We had a very strict budget. We were still fundraising towards the end to get the project finished, versus the sustainability that we wanted to reach. The areas where we thought we could be better were our building envelope. We were able to exceed code requirements for installation with the help of FOE. Our HVAC system has special needs, being in a museum. We have high efficiency rooftop units. We have economizers, CO2 detectors, digital thermostats with the help of FOE. And then our lighting is 75% LED. And also we have over 75% occupancy sensors, which was another requirement or suggestion, I should say, by the Focus on Energy folks. In the end, we are saving more than $9,000 a year in estimated energy costs, which is a lot of money for our organization. And we received a total incentive of over $14,000 to implement the measures that FOE suggested. So I guess that's a kind of a rushed overview of how we were able to benefit from the FOE program.
That's great. Thank you, Destiny. And both for you and Mike, I would point out that you have this savings every year. Once you pay back, Mike said there was a 5-year payback, and then after that, it's all these resources that used to go literally out the window in the form of lost heat, et cetera, are resources that could stay within the mission of the organization. Both of you are struggling nonprofits that have to raise a lot of money to keep going and doing the work that you're doing, and so that not spending on heating and cooling, et cetera, for your building is a ongoing gift for you too. And also, the fun thing about energy is that you're reducing your climate impact too. There's a CO2 connection to every kilowatt hour that we use that's grid generated or coal-fired generated. And Wisconsin's coal generation, I think it's still about 50%. It's going down, but it's still about 50% of the electricity produced in Wisconsin, used in Wisconsin, is coal orientation. Increasingly, it's going to natural gas, and increasingly solar is coming on, but it's still a small number. But for both of you, you save money on your operations going forward. And Destiny, I assume is the Astorium, like everything else, are you on furlough right now?
We are. We closed the 16th of March.
Oh,
we hope we can get open as soon as possible, but looking like a long road ahead of us.
Yeah. And Mike, how about the Alliance? Are you still operating? You have more of an office that you work out of.
You broke up a bit there, Warren. Could you repeat that question?
Sure, Mike, is the Alliance, are you still operating now in this COVID-19 shutdown?
Well, we are. Right now, my sanctuary is home, my car, and here. We have everybody else working remotely. And so we're certainly not an essential business, but we are meeting the minimal operational guidelines that are being recommended. And we have had to call all of our volunteers out of the field.
Yeah, it's changed everything. Well, thank you so much for talking, and then stay on the line.
Very much so.
Turn it on over. I also wanted to highlight Seaman Lumber in Cross Plains. They have also taken advantage of the Focus on Energy incentives, and I learned just today that Seaman Lumber, I didn't know this, is Dane County's oldest lumber yard and building supply store. 140 years they've been at this location. Wow. And it's a wonderful place. You go there and they're the most well-organized and friendliest folks in the world. But they took advantage of the Focus on Energy offers a couple of years ago for lighting and HVAC, heating and ventilation and air conditioning upgrades. And they saved about $2,900 or nearly $3,000 in energy costs related to CO2 production. And they, as part of that project, I don't know what the total project was, but it was nearly $7,000 incentive from Focus on Energy to help fund that. And again, this is improved environment there that they've had. They've gone through this. They've reduced their CO2. They've saved money in terms of their operation. And they're a great example too in terms of what can be done. So with that, if I can, I would like to turn it over to Chris. And Chris, can you chime in here? Hopefully your mic is on. And I'm going to turn it to you to be a panelist. There you go. And Chris, do you have the screen or is your mic going? And Chris, we can't hear you. I can see your mouse, I can see your agenda, but I can't hear your voice. So this is what Chris and I worked on this last week, and we had it running perfectly, and we talked back and forth on here. He just raised his finger. Very good, he's going to call. A short story. I was watching a webinar last week with the Nelson Institute and a bunch of high-level panelists that were doing that, and they were doing this, and I was encouraged a bit because they were struggling through all sorts of technical difficulties as they went through it, and so I thought, well, we can work through this too.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yay. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, I'll get the slideshow going, get going here shortly. All right, let's do this. All right. All right, can you see the first slide?
I can, and hopefully everyone else can too.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So as Warren said, my name is Chris Seitz. I'm an energy advisor with Focus on Energy. My main task with Focus is to work with school and government customers to help them save energy, calculate energy savings, that kind of thing. So there are some slides in here about some agriculture incentives and projects, and I know a little bit about residential, so I can, if I can't answer it, we can point you in the right direction anyway. So basically, we're going to just take and talk about energy efficiency, and then I'm going to go through the various types of incentives Focus Energy has. New construction, renewable, lighting, HVAC, all that kind of stuff. So what is Focus on Energy? Focus on Energy is a state program designed to provide incentives and work with customers to implement energy efficient projects, essentially. So we calculate energy savings. We can recommend various companies that you can work with, various technologies. We can do walkthrough, go through your building and take a look and make recommendations on lighting or heating or cooling, that kind of thing. We provide incentives to the whole spectrum of customers in Wisconsin, residential to small business to commercial to, like I said, school and government and industrial, and basically anyone. If you live in an area where the utility participates in Focus on Energy, you can obtain an incentive. There are just a few small utilities, I believe, of northern Wisconsin that do not participate. And it's a very efficient program. So for every $1 invested, as you see, $5 in benefits are provided in terms of the work that is done, the energy savings that is done, and I think they're pretty proud of this. So a statewide energy efficiency program. So Berkeley Lab found that Focus on Energy runs the most cost-effective program in the nation of all the 50 states. So I think we've been doing this probably since around 2005. So we've been doing it quite a long time. So I think they got a pretty good handle on what we can do and what we can provide. So I'll go into the types of incentives we have now. So there are basically two types of incentives Focus Energy provides to customers: prescriptive incentives and custom incentives. So for prescriptive incentives, those are the types that you'll see in, we have incentive catalogs, and then there's a 2-page application that you can fill out, and those incentives are prescriptive incentives, and they're essentially one-for-one replacements of like lights, light fixtures, 2x4 light fixtures, light bulbs, boilers, chillers, heating, or other types of cooling units. So those types of things. Really, the most commonly used types of projects that you see really are kind of covered by the prescriptive incentive process. But the key here, as long as you can put in a piece of equipment, as long as it qualifies, you basically put it in and then fill out that 2-page application and submit along with an invoice within 60 days of the project being done, and then we can send you a check in the mail. And there are some qualifications, and I might say this again, but I think the one thing, if anything, I want to leave with you is talk to an energy advisor, talk to Focus on Energy before you do your project. in that case, we can let you know if there are any, types of equipment that may qualify, may not qualify, or any types of, sometimes there's a reservation code that needs to be obtained before you do something. So I guess that's the key. Contact us before you start your project. So for custom incentive projects, so basically any project that is not covered via the prescriptive incentive process. So these are, more complicated projects a lot of times. Probably the most common thing we see types of projects, these are probably ones you'll see in office buildings or schools or government buildings is when the air handling system of the building, is changed out to make it more efficient with more control ability, if you will. That's a very common, custom project that we do. And there are others, but like I said, that's probably the most popular one that I see. So for custom incentives, unlike prescriptive incentives where you might have a certain dollar amount per item that you receive. So for example, for a 2x4 a new LED fixture, you're going to receive an $18 incentive per fixture, as long as it qualifies. There's like I said, there's that one qualification that we need to work on, but there are various types of prescriptive incentives have a dedicated, already determined incentive. But for custom incentives, we have the amounts you see here: 4 cents a kilowatt hour, $1 per kW peak, and then 80 cents per therm. And in order to attain the peak kW incentive, you need to be operating 1 to 4 p.m. June, July, and August, Monday to Friday. And that's basically the peak time that the generate the utilities generate power, the highest peaks you'll see in the system. There will be a new type of incentive called Comprehensive Lighting Solution coming out. And to be honest, there's nothing out on it yet. It's supposed to come out in second quarter. So I guess, and what I will say is that it's designed, if you're going to look at replacing the lighting and maybe put in some controls with in your whole building, instead of maybe doing it piecemeal or ones or twosies, if you're going to do the whole building, this type of incentive might apply to you. Oh, wrong way. One of the newer things we're seeing with LED lighting is network lighting controls. You'll see essentially what this is every single fixture in a building is connected. So each individual fixture will have its own IP address and then addressable via a main computer. So, from one spot, you can, in some 100,000 square foot building, you can control every single light fixture in that building. You can dim it, you can turn it on and off. You can see, if the occupancy sensors are working or not. You can create lighting scenes, and there'll be an example of this, farther on. But let's say in a school, in a gymnasium, you can create predetermined lighting scenes. Let's say at the beginning of a basketball game or something like that. If you want to dim the lights, then bring them up, that kind of thing. And it's really very neat. It's somewhat new yet, but there are quite a few companies that are starting to get on board and providing this type of technology, and I see this really growing, in the future as a lot of buildings convert from just putting in LED lamps and new fixtures, and then probably this is that next logical step. Retro commissioning, kind of changing, I guess, speeds here for a little bit. For your HVAC system, retro commissioning is an excellent thing to do if you have an older building that you're not sure is running as efficiently as possible. A company will come in, look at all your controls, look at the various equipment, make sure it's operating correctly. Maybe on an air handler, a damper isn't opening like it's supposed to, or some type of slide is broken and not working, or your controls are older, or whoever was controlling it came in and changed things one time and now it's not working like it was designed to when that building was designed. This is an excellent way to go. It's a fairly inexpensive way to potentially reap quite a bit of energy savings out of a building. We've seen these, again, with a lot in office buildings or school buildings or government buildings. I think it's an excellent way to go if you have an older building and, like I said, you're not sure you're running as efficient as possible. Do this. I do recommend this. So for lighting upgrades, I talked about this briefly, but we'll kind of go into it a little bit here. So there are various types of lighting upgrades. Here you can see this person is putting a lamp into a 2x4 fixture. There's still a lot of fluorescent fixtures out there, T8 fixtures, you know, the 1-inch diameter bulbs, T12s, the 1.5-inch diameter bulbs are still out there. I've seen those too. But you know, in a 2x4 fixture, you can just take out that fluorescent bulb and put in a new LED tube. It'll pop right in. It's got the same end connectors, and away it goes. The only thing you have to worry about is the ballast. You know, there's an old ballast in there converting that, the voltage, from your building to a voltage that lamp can handle. And so if that ballast is old, it may not work. If you're going to do the tube placement, I do recommend getting rid of the ballast instead, so you don't have to worry about that. Because if you just put in some lamps and you have an old ballast, at some point that ballast is going to fail and you're going to have to kind of change everything out again. So I do recommend that. And lamps is actually a great inexpensive way to, basically change your building out and put in LEDs. The next step up from that is putting in fixtures. And again, I do recommend, if you have the ability and you have the money, fixtures is probably the way to go. It's going to allow you much more flexibility, much more. You can do some dimming and different occupancy controls and various things with that. So, and I think in the future, then that'll, like I mentioned before, will relate to that network lighting control system. But that's the way to go if you can. There are exterior lighting, down lights, pole lights, wall packs, that kind of thing. And if they're on dusk to dawn, I definitely recommend doing those, because those are on half the year, probably more than any lights you might own. So that is a great way to go, and probably one of the most energy efficient things you can do for LED lighting. For heating and cooling, again, anything that heats or cools, chillers, DX units, that's what direct expansion rooftop air conditioning units are, boilers. One thing I still see is there are not a lot of variable frequency drives on hot water pumps, cold water pumps, fan motors. And that's definitely something that should be looked at if it's not out there. Because like I said, if the beautiful thing about reducing your motor speed is a 20% reduction in motor speed reduces your energy use by 50%. It's a great way to save energy, especially if those motors are running, a lot of hours during the year. For ag, you have the same, basically LED, and like a lot of farms, greenhouses, etc., are also looking at LED. It's a great way to go. Definitely recommend that. We have refrigeration tune-up, for dairy farms, vacuum pumping. There's new horticultural lighting out there where the LEDs can tune the type of, a certain light spectrum for whatever plants that you want to grow. Say you want lettuce, and it wants a certain amount, a certain light spectrum. Let's say it wants red or blue or green or light. They can kind of tune the light to provide the certain light that you need for whatever plants you're going to grow. It's really a fascinating new type of lighting, and we see a lot of that starting to go in for new greenhouses and that kind of thing. And then ventilation and circulation fans, and I think I'll touch on some of that before. We have some examples coming up too. So renewable energy, there are incentives for solar PV. It is a prescriptive incentive, so basically it's a form you fill out and you can get money. If you go to, Focus Energy has plenty of information on the website. And there's money for residential and commercial. So, like I said, I don't have the numbers off my top of my head right now. But again, if you want to contact me after this, or just go to the website, there's plenty. They'll completely fill you in and all the types of incentives and amount of money that you can do, and then the requirements that might be required for whatever system you put in. As Warren mentioned, I do recommend doing energy conservation before you do any type of renewable energy. Number one, usually the paybacks are quicker, and then number two, you're going to need less energy. There'll be less energy to be powered via that solar PV system if you reduce the energy through energy conservation. So definitely recommend doing that as much as you possibly can. And then for new construction, like I said, we do recommend, before you even start designing that building, get a hold of Focus on Energy. The Energy Design Assistance, actually it's a portal on the website. And so you can plug in, the information from your building, and then, work with Focus on Energy to, provide incentives on, for the ground up, essentially. There are even incentives for the architects, as they go forward with this, to encourage them to get involved in that process. So, and really, this is if you're trying to get Focus on Energy incentive money for a new building, this is the best way to go. You're going to get your best bang for your buck through this process. Now, if you already designed it, or you're halfway through that design, you're going to get a little bit less money, but then you're going to go through this process here, the Energy Design Review. Again, it's still got to be in the design process, I should say. So again, if you go through the portal, let Focus on Energy know where you are in the process. You'll be able to see, we'll help you out with that process and provide incentives as we go forward. And then if everything's designed all together already, there's still incentives, through Focus on Energy, but then they become the prescriptive incentives, for, certain dollar amount for lighting, for heating, for cooling, that type of thing, and then going through the application process. For lighting, it's typically the lighting power density, for that building. So eligibility, commercial buildings, industrial, multifamily. So really most anything that's going on right now. So now we're getting some examples. There'll be some ag, and then we have, I think, a few schools right now. But so there are quite a few farms that are able to obtain Focus on Energy incentives. I believe this one was like a new construction, project, but I printed out a little list here. But they put in new milk pumps, vacuum pumps, LEDs, fans, to keep those cows cool. Variable speed drives on the well pump and other pumps that were there. Energy-free waterers for the animals. No energy required. There's enough insulation in the waterers themselves, so they don't freeze over in the wintertime. What else do we have? Water. He does domestic hot water. So pretty much anything. A lot of the things that go on a farm can receive incentives. And this one, as you can see, was a very, very attractive project. Here's another project, Dolph Dairy Farm, and really the same kind of thing. This one was really, the LED lighting, the ventilation, and then the variable speed drives. The key thing about the ventilation is certain fans will qualify for incentive and some will not. It's all dependent on how many CFM, how much air can be pushed through the fan per unit of energy, and there's some minimum requirements that Focus Energy has. And then beyond that, you can also put some variable speed drives on the fan motors themselves. So and then you kind of tie that in, let's say, with the temperature outside. The cooler it is, the less fan movement, the less air movement you need to keep the cows cool. And cool cow is a happy cow, and a happy cow produces a lot of milk. Actually, this is a good example of a custom project. So the swine farrowing crate heater. So at this farm, they used to have really 2 100-watt incandescent light bulbs heating the little guys there. And they're on, like I said, many, many hours of the year. So what they did is they actually replaced it with a technology where it would basically use only half the energy to keep little piglets warm. So they saved a lot of energy and kept everyone happy. It actually was a great energy saving project. So here's Elbrook School District. And really, this is a kind of a wholesale renovation of one of the schools there. And actually, this is a school where they put the network lighting control in, so that the whole school is now full of LED fixtures and also the network lighting control, so they can, like I said, control the lights when they're on, when they're off. One thing I should note too is that for LED fixtures, pretty much every time I've seen this type of system go in, the maximum lighting starts at 80%. They never go to 100% of the light output of the fixture. They start at 80%. And there's always enough light for, the classroom or whatever space is being lit. And a lot of times the teachers will kind of lower that from there. What this also do is, what it does is that allows, let's say, a teacher has a smart board in the front of the class. They can reduce the light levels of maybe one or two fixtures, so everyone can see that smart board a little better. And so beyond the lighting, I think new chiller went in. I think a new digital control system. So again, a new system to control the heating and cooling of the building, which kind of goes back to that custom incentive I mentioned regarding the air distribution system. They put it in a new system where they can control setting temperatures at various times of the day, cooling off at night when no one's in the building, reducing the amount of fresh air that's needed at night when no one's in the building. So there's a lot of different technologies or methods to provide energy savings when you do kind of a wholesale renovation like this. Argyle School District. So this is an interesting project in terms of boiler turn down. So some of the newer boilers are high efficiency boilers. They're 90% efficient, and they can really ramp down and ramp up how much heat is needed for a building. But if you have an older boiler, the hot water boiler that's been around forever, it runs all the time, runs great. It's just an older type of boiler that you kind of want to improve the efficiency of. You can put on kind of a new front burner system onto that boiler with kind of variable speed controls and different things like that to increase the efficiency of that existing boiler that you have. In this case, you can see that actually was a great, project, great incentive, and will pay back, money over the long run, because I'm sure those boilers will probably be there for another 20 years, I bet. This is an interesting custom project. So this is Belvederian School District. And what they did is they had a company come in and kind of really look at how much air infiltration is going into the building. Something almost like you might do at your home. You come in and do a blower test and see, okay, look at all the different areas in your home where you might have cracks or where air can leak in or air can leak out, that kind of thing. You can also do that in commercial buildings. So a company will come in, they'll quantify the gaps in your building and really per square inch essentially, and then calculate how much energy will be saved in the wintertime or in the summertime if you're cooling and if you have summer school. And to be honest, most of that savings is in the wintertime. In this case, they can do it and receive a nice incentive from Focus on Energy. Actually, Cedarburg, here's another school that did the network lighting control, and this is actually the one I'm referring to in terms of they have they schedule different scenes in the gym, so for pre-game, during the game, post-game, celebrations or different gatherings of students. And you can, like I said, you have individual control. You can see every single fixture, what it's doing, where it is, how much light it provides. But again, it's something I think you'll see a lot more of in the future. And just, I think some examples. These are brand new 2x4 fixtures. This is that gym. Actually, they have uplighting. They didn't want, I guess in this case, lighting glaring down to the ground in terms of in people's eyes, that kind of thing. So everything is uplit, for kind of essentially a more smoother light, if you will, kind of a nicer light. And we're coming to the end here, but we have, like I said, we put a best practices guide together for school and government facilities. This would actually probably also work and would work for any government office building. And so we have copies of that available for anyone that wants them. If you can just email a PDF link. Same thing with ag. There are guidebooks for agriculture. And again, one more time to stress, contact your energy advisor or Focus on Energy in general if before you start to look at it. We can sometimes provide suggestions on where to go, give you a list of various companies that you can look at. We don't recommend anyone in particular, we're a government entity essentially, so we're not able to do that. But on our website, you can actually go there and type in what you're looking for, lighting, type in your zip code, and a whole list of companies, electrical contractors, designers will kind of show up, and then you can see, pick from that list and go go from there. And questions?
We do, Chris. A couple of questions have come in, a couple of comments. One question for you is, was asked, when removing the old ballast, especially magnetic ballast, is there any focus on energy incentive that helps with disposal of those toxic materials contained in the ballast?
Unfortunately not. No, our incentives are only for saving energy, essentially. Actually, that's good. One thing, if I can real quick mention it is, so we only provide incentives for saving energy, and really the incentive is designed to, in most cases, when you are putting in a new piece of equipment, to really encourage you to go from that average efficient piece of equipment to the high efficient. So that's what our incentive is designed to try and bridge that gap. I mean, you're never going to put it in a new furnace or boiler or AC unit just because of the incentive focus on energy provides. But when you are looking at doing that, hopefully we're here to, provide an incentive to encourage you to get the most efficient piece of equipment you can.
And there must be some correct way of disposing of those old ballast if they go through that. I would anticipate you just don't know about it, or it's not funded. Is that? I mean, the contractors.
It's just not funded. Yeah, there are companies around the state will do that. I think if you just probably went to a search engine and ballast, just type in the appropriate words. I mean, you can do that. I know there's one down here. There's one in Janesville, I believe, that I think I visited a few years ago. I'm sure there's some up north too. So they're out there. I think you have to get a hold of them.
Okay, another question: would the Delavan school district pay back more quickly than 10 years? I guess could they speed up that 10-year payback given what was done there? Do you recall?
Well, it was for that. Actually, that was part of a much larger project. They put in, same thing with Delavan. They put in new LEDs and heating and the cooling equipment, and this is just something they wanted to do. And in that case, that type of project is right around that 10-year level. But I think when you added it, when you combined it with all the other projects that we're doing, like LED lighting, we can see 3, 4, 5-year paybacks, for sure. 3 years sometimes, 5 years for sure, typically. So what they did is they kind of, like I said, combined all those paybacks, and everything came way down essentially.
Okay. Another question, and this again, a number of the people on the call here are homeowners and not big schools, but I have to point out that we all of us are taxpayers to the school systems. All of us, know people that have farms and stuff. So I think to the extent that we ask our units of government that might take advantage of this, some of these incentives, we might say, have you checked out Focus on Energy? I know Wisconsin Heights has just completed a lighting upgrade that they're quite pleased with. They know how much energy they are saving, but I don't know that they took advantage of Focus on Energy incentives in doing that. I would hope so, but
actually they did.
They did.
They did.
Okay, good.
Yep. I'm involved. I'm involved in that project. Yep.
All right. And how about Mount Horeb? They just did a complete building addition there. Do you know if they've worked with Focus on Energy in that expansion of their school plant there?
Yes, I work with Mount Horeb also.
All right. Okay. So the word's out on that. A homeowner question is, do you have any suggestions for a basement dehumidifier, which uses a lot of energy, but is very important in terms of keeping the house conditioned? Is there any incentives, or do you have any information about that?
There are no incentives for a dehumidifier, but like you said, it is very important. I use one myself. You need to keep that basically. So no, I guess I don't have any recommendations. There are incentives for for furnaces, and there are some qualifications for those. I think you need an EC blower motor, so electronically commutated motor. It's kind of a new technology that acts like a variable speed drive that will spin at different levels, to provide different airflows, if you will. So that is a requirement. I think, and also maybe a dual stage burner. I guess I'd have to check for sure, but there are incentives for furnaces, for AC units. I believe there is a new hybrid hot water heater out there now.
Okay.
Where they use the waste heat from an electric motor to heat up that water. In fact, I've been looking at that myself. They're more expensive definitely than a regular natural gas water heater, but it is a more efficient electric type of product that we do provide incentives for. So if you're, I guess looking at a new water heater and are looking for some energy efficient version, I recommend looking at that the hybrid hot water heater.
Okay, great. Just for the participants, tomorrow you'll get an email follow-up to this webinar that has a recording of this webinar. If you want to see it multiple times with your family and friends, you can certainly do that. But also there'll be links to the to websites for the specific links, the incentives that Focus on Energy has. So you don't have to write all this down, but that'll come tomorrow in an email to you. I know that my wife and I at our home and others in the town of Vermont have taken advantage of the Focus on Energy resources. I think for our solar installation, we got a $2,000 contribution to the installation cost of our system. And I think I'm correct on this, but I think in rural Dane County, there's an extra incentive for solar. I think it's something in the order of $3,000 maybe and $2,000. I know the solar incentive went down some, but I think it's a little bit higher for rural communities. So that's available too.
Hey, Warren, I just one.
Pardon me?
If I could add something real quick?
You bet.
I just want to add something real quick. Is that, if you go to and maybe everyone has done this now, but if you go to the website, you can sign up for a free, a free box of LEDs will be sent to your home. So you can go to the website, you go to the residential tab up there. I think probably the only thing you need that you may not know offhand is your utility electric account number. But do that, fill it out. They'll give you a choice, some different options. You can choose some, and then we'll send you a free box of LEDs.
Great. Okay. So here's a personal question I have for you, and then we'll open it up to others. So if you have incandescent bulbs that are still in use, should you unplug that, or should you screw that out and throw that away, or recycle it appropriately, I guess, and put in LED, or should you let the incandescent bulb stay in there till it burns out? I never kind of know what to do about that. Any idea?
I would, I guess with the prices where they are now, I would replace it unless it's heating a little turtle or a lizard or something, or that he needs the heat.
Okay.
I would replace it and put in a new LED.
Okay.
Actually, because we have a tortoise. That my wife. My wife's a second grade teacher, so actually she has a number of animals, so we have to keep them warm.
Okay. I just wanted to also, another comment came in from our friends at Legacy Solar Cooperative, which is going to be doing the presentation next month from now. But Bill, you talked about or Mike, I'm sorry, Mark, you talked about your roof is all set for solar on top there in Cross Plains. And Legacy said, we can help you with that. They can do the assessment, they can help get it funded and everything else. So you two need to talk to each other. And the contact information will come out. And I think that's
a good idea.
Solar opportunities next month. Let me just see if there's some people have been submitting questions on here and comments. Here's another one from Rob Danielson. Are there any incentives for high efficiency ECM replacement furnace motors? What is ECM? That's a replacement.
That's that electronically commutated motor I mentioned. It kind of acts like a variable speed drive, kind of a DC version of a AC motor that will spin down. That's a really good question. Is this for residential? There may be. I know for commercial there are EC fan motor incentives, school and government commercial. I think the pumps are now code, so unfortunately we can't do that. But in terms of residential, there may be, but I'm not sure offhand. I'd have to look. Can we do something in the email that you send out, Warren?
Pardon me? Can we do what?
Can I add some information on whether there's an incentive for that in the email that you send out?
Yeah, I think I can do that, or include your contact information and get in touch with you. I think, or we have the contact information for the energy advisor too. How to find your energy advisor.
Okay.
Let me just see. I think there's a way we can unmute. We can actually unmute everyone if there are questions, or you can raise your hand if you want. And I'm going to take a gamble here, and if it gets really noisy, I'm going to just try to unmute everyone online here. Sometimes if there are dogs barking or engines running, it gets noisy, but let's just see what happens. Or I can unmute people individually, but I just want to see if there are comments or questions for anyone here from anyone here tonight. So here goes, unmute all. And it doesn't seem very noisy right now.
I'm unmuted.
Okay.
I have a question for Chris about information I got from one of our neighbors here, John Coffin, and he suggested for people who are so inclined to, when they replace their refrigerators, go to energy efficient, also simpler refrigerators, ones that don't produce constantly ice cubes or have all the fancy additions on them, that you can go to a very simple, much simpler machines for those people who like simple machines. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think in terms of energy, that's a good. I don't know offhand, but I like simple. I think everything's getting more and more complicated all the time, and maybe that's the way the world's going. But yeah, that'd be fine by me. Instead of if you feel led to do that, I say definitely do it.
Are there, just speak up if you have a question or a comment from your experience or suggestions for energy efficiency.
No one else has a question. I have one.
One thing I want.
Right, I think Peter Anthony is going to ask the question. Peter? Peter, I think you had a comment, or Tony Hartman from Legacy. Did you want to say something?
The number $500 sticks in my head for the rural bonus, but I'm not sure if that's residential. Maybe Chris knows. Is there? I know one project we were working on got the $500 bonus, and I think it was a small commercial, but perhaps it also applies to residential. This was for solar.
Yeah, solar, the extra rural.
Okay. I have to look that up. Actually, while I'm looking that up too, I did look up the EC motor question, and there is an incentive for replacing an AC motor in an existing furnace. So it looks like it's $50 for doing that.
Okay. We can clarify next month also specifically what the incentive is for out here, Tony. So that'll come up next month too.
Well, this was also happened to be a farm, so that might have had something to do with it.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have a question?
Yeah, very well made. Right. Actually, so here, real quick, so rural residential customers will receive a $500 bonus for installing a system. See rural zip codes on focusonenergy.com/renewable to confirm eligibility.
That's 500 above the whatever the base is. And I don't know if it's 1,500 or whatever it is. It went down some, I think. But we can clarify that.
The max incentive is 1,500.
Okay, so 2,000 here. All right. Other comments or questions from at this point in time, or experiences that you want to share or suggestions for in terms of energy efficiency?
I have just one comment. When we did our solar planning, we estimated our annual consumption. Then went ahead and did the solar. Then we found out that we should make some changes. So we changed out our old freezer, and we started turning off water heating basically on the farm here, or even during the winter when it wasn't so cold. And we then dramatically reduced our consumption just by watching it. So I think that's where we don't have variable control on every circuit, just by yourself walking around and being fanatical. You can save a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely. That's, one thing, it's interesting you say that. So Focus on Energy benchmarked 1,200 school buildings last year, in Wisconsin. So just Wisconsin buildings, benchmarked them in terms of energy use per square foot. So therm per square foot and kilowatt hour per square foot. And one thing we found is that it didn't matter the age of the building, when you compared it to how efficient the building was used energy. It really did. It was all, though that number, there was no correlation. It really came down to how well the building was run, how efficiently the building was run. Even if you had an old building with a lot of manual controls or a new building with digital controls, really, if you had a dedicated person looking at that, you had an energy efficient building.
Anything else?
And then, one thing, real quick, one last thing maybe, but if you have an old freezer or refrigerator that's still running, the compressor motor has to turn on. Focus Energy will come and take it away for free and dispose of it properly. So that is something we will do also.
Okay. I was trying unsuccessfully to switch back to my PowerPoint projection. I don't think it's there now, but it's not showing. Okay, I don't hear anything else. Had I been able to I just want to mention one other comment that Nicola Hine raised during the course of it. And I think as while we were talking about the Alliance and the Historium, that on saving, since energy costs usually increase over time and loan payments don't, it's even a better deal if you borrow for the energy improvements. So energy costs seem to be going up regularly, and loan if you get it fixed over the period of time. And we're going to be talking about this next month also in terms of programs that help on borrowing money to, for example, on renewable energy to get that up and running. But I think that's an important thought as you think about financing these things. So not hearing or seeing any other questions. I can't believe the sound is not noisier than it is. Usually when you unmute all, it gets really noisy, but it's not.
I have another question in the chat box. This is Nicholas Hine again.
Okay, Nicola, go ahead.
Yeah, is there a source for information on residential? This is for Focus on Energy. Is there a source of information on residential HVAC heat pumps? We've gotten quotes from several contractors, but the information seems inconsistent about ducting requirements, the cost of mini splits, and that. The stuff I find online generally targets milder climates, and I haven't seen anything that talks about Midwestern or Northern climates.
Nothing offhand. That's a good question. We may see a lot. We have some engineers on staff that will work on various types of projects. I don't know if they've looked at that type of thing, because to be honest, what we look at is we work with the contractors or designers, and if the project goes forward, we provide an incentive, and typically they're really the experts in the technology. Like what I know a little about a lot. That's my job, is to know a little about almost everything that that we do in terms of saving energy. So really, to be honest, we rely on them to be the experts in that type of thing. I can look and I can ask that question. If you want to contact me, I can kind of see what I can find out on my end after this.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. One other thing too, I'd just like to mention, the dehumidifiers, just to put that in perspective. I was analyzing a residence for a friend, and we put a kilowatt on the dehumidifier and found that it was using 200 kilowatt hours a month, which is about what it would take to charge an electric vehicle per month.
They do use a lot of electricity. I'm thinking, if we don't have the immediate answers here, there's a lot of wisdom on the website here. And Chris, if you have follow-up ideas, I think email anything that comes up or pops up to me, and I'll try to get it back out to the group, and maybe we can address it also, bring it up next month at our meeting and Climate Action Workshop 3. But there are particularly good questions and comments here, especially on the more energy efficient dehumidifiers, heat pumps that work in the cold climates. It'd be good to have more information on that.
On the Warren, this is Rob Danielson. Can you hear me?
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
Hi, Chris. One of the things that I've noticed with dehumidifiers that might possibly fit into some of this discussion is that often there's a part of a room, a basement room, or part of the house that is getting more moisture than the rest of the house. And I found in a number of cases when I've helped people with dehumidifiers and big bills because of them that you can get a humidistat, a measuring tool for the humidity. Walmart sells them for like $4 or $5 a piece. And if you put a humidistat in each of the rooms in the basement or whatever the area is, you may find that there's a real disproportionate amount of moisture in the area where the humidifier is. So in 2 cases, we were able to just simply put, in one case, just one fan, like a 16-inch rotary fan that has a motor head on it so it spins around, and just put that on a timer so that it turns on for about 10 minutes and then turns off for about a half an hour and turns on for 10 minutes and just moves the air between the different rooms with the different moisture content, and that actually dropped down the humidity in the damp room as much as the dehumidifier and used a teeny fraction of the amount of power. Follow the technique there?
Yeah. Move the air among the various humidity levels in the different rooms, and it takes the air out of the.
Yeah, in other words, you've got the drier air in the other room. What you really have is not a humidity problem. You actually have a problem with circulation of the air that's causing the moisture to build up in one room.
Yeah, that's great. Anything else? Any other comments? Okay, I think we can close it out. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, Mike and Destiny and everyone for attending here. As my good wife said, this gives everyone talk about in the coffee house tomorrow, but then we corrected and said this will give something everyone to talk about on Zoom tomorrow. So when you're in your Zoom chat rooms, sipping your coffee in your own house, you can share what you've learned from here. So anyway, we'll be in touch. Join us again April 28th. Email me if we need to kind of share information between then. We'll figure out some way to set up a network to share the information on it. But again, each one of these little things makes a huge difference. Ken, and then helping us spread the information from ourselves to many others. We can quicken the pace of change that we need to have in our world. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
All right. Good night.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Chris.